Hello, today my guest is Natalie Ruiz. Natalie serves as the CEO of AnswerConnect, a leader in providing innovative, human-powered customer experience solutions for small and mid-sized businesses. She has helped drive the company's growth and expansion through strategic initiatives and a focus on customer-centric services. Under her leadership, AnswerConnect has flourished, setting new standards in the industry for service excellence and technological advancement. Natalie is known for her dynamic leadership style and commitment to empowering teams to achieve peak performance. She's an award-winning executive, recognized as Female Executive of the Year and for Women Helping Women by the Stevie Award Association, a woman of influence by the Portland Business Journal, one of 100 women to know in America, and one of the 2024 most influential women of the mid-market. Help me welcome Natalie Ruiz to our show, The Art of Being Human. Hi, Natalie. It's such a joy to have you with us here today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me, Kathy.
Well, of course, I'm so looking forward to our talk together today because you've had such an extraordinary journey into leadership. So I'd like to get right into it. Why don't you start by giving us a brief explanation of the company you work for, but I'm more interested in your journey.
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying I have the distinct pleasure of leading AnswerConnect, which is a company that really specializes in human connection for small business. So, about 30 years ago, we started out as a telephone answering service. Small businesses are those owners are typically wearing many hats. They don't have the time to answer their phone, or quite honestly, maybe they shouldn't be answering their phone because they're on the road or they're on a roof or they're with a patient or whatever the case is. So that's how AnswerConnect began. And then, of course, as the world progressed, we became a lot more technical. We started building mobile apps because we recognized that our clients were out on the road. Their business was kind of happening anywhere. And we changed as well along that time. We went from being a co located business in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, US, to hiring across the nation and then expanding into other countries. The core, though, has always been there. It's that we're really passionate about small business. We want to make sure that our clients don't miss out on any potential business. They also don't sacrifice customer service because they're too busy to provide that really intentional human connection. But now we have a whole suite of tech that can also help them schedule appointments, stay connected to their business anywhere, manage their leads and their prospects and their existing customers and all of that. So I've always thought that AnswerConnect is kind of a one-stop shop for a small or mid-sized business with live, real humans who sound like we're sitting right in the office with our client.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And you started working for them as as a temporary employee, how many years ago?
It has been almost 20 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I wish I could have said, I saw AnswerConnect from a distance and I knew that was my future, but I definitely didn't. I went to a temp agency because I did know that I needed a pivot. I needed a change. I was burnt out from what I had been doing. And quite honestly, this idea of working in a call center, providing customer service, it sounded kind of like the break that I needed at that time.
Mm.
And it offered flexible scheduling. And I thought, okay, I can do this for a bit before I decide what I want to do next. I will say, best laid plans. I learn over and over again that I'm not somebody who kind of sits by and just lets things wash over me. And what I didn't know about AnswerConnect, right? It definitely did offer flexible hours and it was customer service and all of those things. It was also very, very much a startup,
Mm.
which can be really great and can also be really chaotic. And so
Mm.
on the chaotic side of my first impressions, I amassed kind of a list of concerns and I didn't think it was going to be the right fit. There was no onboarding, there was no training. I didn't really at that time understand what in the world we were doing, answering calls for all of these various seemingly disjointed businesses. And I actually had a chance encounter with the co-founder and at the time CEO of the company. It was early in my, first week, and we happened to pass each other in the hallway, and he asked me something really normal, something like, "Hey, how's it going? You're new here, right?" And I don't know what got into me, but I told him how it was going, which was not super well. To his credit, he asked more questions. He took in the feedback, and quite honestly, like I'm sure I would cringe if I could remember how I shared all of my really raw, unfiltered, unplanned feedback, but he took the threads of truth and he immediately had an informal meeting, which I was invited to, where they discussed some of this. And by the end of my first week, a couple of small things had changed with the onboarding experience.
Mm,
So that was kind of like magic to me. I've had a
mm,
job for my whole life. I've had lots of bosses, and it wasn't my first rodeo of being probably outspoken and having a lot to say, but it certainly was probably one of my first experiences having somebody who had that much power, that much influence, that fancy of a title really see me and take the valuable information I was sharing. So that planted a seed, and I think that that seed really grew. It kept me engaged and intrigued with Answer Connect. It kept me wanting to lean in and see if there were other things that I could help make better.
mhm.
And it's definitely inspired the kind of leader that I want to be because that was modeled for me really, really early by somebody who is still a mentor for me.
Wow. What a great leader. That's a sign of a great
Definitely.
leader. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. How to just lean in, listen, take the feedback and start
Mhm.
implementing right away.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So how was your journey up to CEO today?
Once again, I'd love to tell you, here's my 10 steps. It was unplanned. It was really organic. The company was growing and I was growing along with it. And I think that that core of curiosity mixed with wanting to make a positive impact helped lead me through the company. So I worked in the contact center, I worked in our sales department, I got into leadership. I got to learn through trial and error about what it takes to be a good leader. I started working in client services. So I learned, kind of the basics. How do you take calls? How do you bring in new customers? And then how do you take care of those customers? Once I'd learned that, I really wanted to learn more about how we recruited and trained and took care of our employees. And over the years, I worked either in or with, I think, almost every department in the company. And it was after 9 years, I was promoted to the role of CEO. And I kind of jokingly, but kind of seriously say, I think they just said, fine, let's give this lady the all access pass because she's already, involved in everything. And so it was in 2015, a year after my daughter was born, when I was promoted to CEO. And it's been an adventure. It's something new every day. I'm on a constant learning journey. I've never been bored, but it's such a privilege.
Wow, I love that. I love how curiosity and your inherent want to make an impact really led the way. I think that's a really heart-centered way of leading. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you. And like I mentioned, I think I had a great example,
Hmm.
in having a leader who was humble enough to listen to my feedback and then
Hmm.
powerful enough to put that into action. It made it a safe environment for me to do the same. And I'm really proud, not that we're perfect because nothing is, but I really do think that our culture continues to feel that way and be that way for our employees. It's really open, it's very collaborative. Now we're across the US and into a few other countries, but I still think that we cast a really wide net for talent and then invite all of that talent into this ongoing conversation, which is basically how can we be better tomorrow than we are today? That's, I think, the driving question.
That's wonderful. And I love how open to growth you are and I mean, I really get the sense, correct me if I'm wrong, that that excellence and the way that the culture is today is a never-ending job. You constantly have to work at it.
It's true. I mean, even if we thought we had just like check mark nailed it, the world keeps changing, people keep changing, technology keeps changing, and what people want or expect or desire, that all changes. So, yeah, it's ever evolving. And I think you do have to be really open and receptive. It's been way too many years since I applied for a job or had those butterflies in my stomach about being new. So I have to listen to what folks who are walking that path have to say.
Yeah, and the world is changing. Our
Mhm.
circumstances are changing. New
Yeah,
things come up, and you really need to have a way of evolving with it all, which is good.
exactly. Yeah,
It's a daily thing. It really is having a healthy culture. Every CEO I talk to who has an extraordinary culture like you do, and the excellent leadership has the same. They invest in their people and they continually lean in and are curious and see how they can get better and better every day because we grow
yeah.
every day. We're either going up or going down.
I I think that, to your point, I think that people who get it and people who've invested in it and see the returns, it's an easy understanding that it's well worth it. Maybe for folks who haven't invested in it, it's kind of the chicken and the egg. They don't see it. But I really think that a great company culture, a strong company culture, that is one of your best strategies. Those are the guardrails that help things stay on the road and help great decisions be made even when you're not in the room.
Absolutely. Because the people who are doing the work, and this is, to our listeners and leaders who are listening to this, it's really an important point to contemplate because every day, the people who work for you, with you, have ideas as to how you can improve a system. Think of new ways of delivering, noticing other technologies you should take a look at. So, if you don't have an open culture, if you're not really um, fishnetting as for new talent, but also within the organization for ideas in a strategic way, you're missing out, right?
Agree. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's really powerful, Natalie. Thank you for sharing that. What an inspirational story. I just love your story. I think it's just really truly extraordinary. As a person who worked as a temp throughout college, I know that that's really just a wonderful journey to where you are today. I love it. So tell me, what has been the hardest thing you've been through in
Mm.
this journey,
Oh
or
my
anything
goodness.
else if you want to share?
I mean, I think that in a lifespan, in a career, there are so many hard things. You know, it could sound maybe a bit trite at this point. I do think that the years that we all went through the COVID-19 pandemic was remarkably hard in so many ways from a business standpoint, working through things that we hadn't seen before. And then from a human standpoint, needing to provide a 24/7, 365 service that, by the way, was growing because suddenly lots of companies needed to be able to work anywhere while also being really human, understanding, empathetic, and acting and leading without a playbook when it came to our employees. I think that was really hard collectively.
Mm, yeah, you
Eh,
can say that again.
Yeah. Um, and I'm sure we made some mistakes. But I will say, looking back overall, I'm really proud of our organization because I think in the places where we weren't sure what the right thing to do was, we weren't sure there was no policy for this, there was no precedent, we couldn't see the future. I think we tried to make the human decision, to do
Mhm,
what was the best and the right thing for our people, for our clients, and we made it out the other side. But I do think that that was collectively difficult. Um, and some people were having nothing to do, so they were learning. I had friends who were learning to play a new instrument or learning a new language, or they were figuring out how to make sourdough bread. And at Answer Connect, we were like busier than we'd ever been.
mhm,
And so it
mhm.
was just such a strange and interesting time to kind of see the extremes of what people were experiencing as well.
Wow, I can only imagine having to deal with the pandemic and all the unknown, plus the
Mm.
company's experiencing growth, which has its own challenges. I can only imagine how hard that must have been, and it seems that you've navigated that pretty gracefully.
it's easy to package it up with a bow now, right? We made it. Yeah, I think so. I think that was very hard. I think something that's more pressing and more today that is hard that we're kind of facing head on is the growth of artificial intelligence and AI, and that coming into this space of contact center, answering service, virtual reception. And I also think that this will be collectively hard.
Mm.
Um, but I would say that's another, interesting and challenging thing that we're
Mhm.
navigating.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think there's a single person who hasn't been impacted negatively by AI answering the phone as opposed to a human being. You get into these loops that you
Right.
can't get out of, and it's so frustrating for as a consumer. I mean, I've had to navigate that a couple times
Hmm.
with just my own services.
Right.
And so, how do you guys? What is your answer to it? Do you guys handle everything in person by human?
We do. I mean, I'm firmly team human. I don't dream of a world where we don't talk to each other. I also think from a business standpoint that customer service is actually one of your strongest brand builders. It's, what do
Absolutely.
you think about when you think about this organization, this company? It's what it's like to work with them. Now, it can come across interesting because I love tech and AnswerConnect loves tech. We
Mhm.
partner with the best and biggest technology that's available, and we use technology to be more efficient, to be more robust, to ensure that we're always here. But we don't cross that line of deciding that if I'm contacting, my physician and I have a question or I have a need or I have something that's not going well, that sending somebody to an automated AI agent is the same as a human. And so we're team human. I think there's probably a place for automation. I think, really simple things can probably be handled there, but I'm so glad that we have a contact center that's staffed with remarkable people who really care, who can make those snap decisions, who can build rapport, and who can represent our clients in a real way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I love the way you put it, team human. I concur. I concur.
Yeah.
Well, it's, when you think of cutting costs as a CEO
Hmm.
who's P&L sensitive and
Hmm.
EBITDA focused, you got to really look at the whole picture. It's not just about how much money you save in this area, but what is it costing you by not, or what opportunities are you missing out on? A keen customer service team can
Hmm.
always point out areas where you can improve. And if they're not, if you're leaving it to an AI, they can't certainly give you the kind of feedback you need, a human-centered feedback that could potentially improve processes that would increase the elevation of one's experience with your company, which could lead to
Hmm.
millions of dollars down the road, right?
Exactly, exactly. Well, we at AnswerConnect, so we answer on behalf of all of these clients. And I'll tell you, we get positive feedback from our clients' callers all the time. And they will say, you need to give Kathy a raise. She was amazing and she did this. And we've even had people who've called in. They said, I was working with Kathy, but I just went to the office and she's not there. And they really think we're part of it. And so, again, you don't get those stories. You don't get those warm, fuzzy feelings. You don't get that brand loyalty with an automated service. It can just, I think the best you can hope with is it meets your expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing catastrophic happens, but it also doesn't ever wow you. It never
Yeah.
makes you feel cared about.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of your employees are in this country?
So we're in the US, we're in Canada, and we're in the UK, and we have business set up there. So our Canadian clients can sign up at the AnswerConnect Canada. Our UK clients can sign up at AnswerConnect UK, and our US clients can sign up at AnswerConnect, which is automatically going to happen. So we've got agents in each place. We also know that folks like to talk with people. It's easier to talk with people from the same
Mhm.
place.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I hope that people listening look you guys up and utilize you in their businesses. I'm sure you guys focusing on small to mid-sized companies, this is a big void. I know because I work with small to mid-sized companies. So I know that this is something that's absolutely needed. I'm sure that you and I can collaborate on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're here to help and we do help. And everything from the success stories of a client finally getting to take their first vacation or even just not answer their cell phone during dinner, right? Put their mind at ease, give them some time back, give them some peace of mind back, or let them just work on the business instead of in the business.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say is your biggest learnings as a
Mm,
leader since you began with this company?
it's a great question. I've learned so much and I wish it wasn't all the hard way, but most of it is. I think that as a leader, the longer I've been in leadership, the more comfortable with vulnerability I've become.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting. And so I remember in the early days of being a leader, feeling as though asking for help, admitting I didn't know something, talking about mistakes, I felt like that would somehow, undermine who I was as a leader or how much people might trust or believe in
Mhm.
me. So I wasn't as forthright about that. And the longer I've gone, the more I have seen how powerful it is for somebody who carries influence and privilege and a fancy title to
Mhm.
really be open and honest and vulnerable because it creates safety around me for other
Mhm.
people to do that. So when I've got a team of folks who aren't afraid to say, I actually am not sure, or I did something, I have to tell you it didn't go well, and here's what it is, you can solve problems really quickly. You can
Mhm.
collectively learn really quickly. By the way, I also like who I am much
Mhm.
better when
Mhm.
I'm just being my authentic self. So
Mhm.
I think that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as a leader is that being yourself, being
Mhm.
true, not armoring up, not trying to hide your vulnerabilities actually makes you a much, much stronger and effective leader and the kind of person that your team's going to want to trust.
Mhm. It's interesting that you put authenticity with vulnerability because that's one of the routes to vulnerability is authenticity. And people who aren't and you ask most people, are you authentic? And they say, yeah, because we deem authenticity as being ourselves, but the authenticity is so much deeper than that. It's so much more profound than that. And it's when people have a difficult time asking for help, admitting when they made a mistake. That is all insecurities that stems from not reaching their true authentic self, don't you think? Do you see that in your
I
in
I absolutely do. I don't think that you can have one without the other.
Mhm.
I do think that authenticity became kind of a buzzword years ago, and everybody wanted to, bring their whole self to work or be super authentic. And I don't think the meaning was really steeped in being vulnerable or really connecting in that same way.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I've learned this the hard way, and I don't think by any stretch that I'm perfect at it. But the more I do it, the more I know I could never go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And we all have, none of us is perfect. The perfection is not even real.
Right? I know that needs to be a billboard for all of us because it isn't. It's not real. I've never seen it. I've never met it. I've never experienced it. I've never achieved it. Like, just strike it from all of us
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
aspirations. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons, and it's something I keep learning. And every time I think I've, got it, then I
Mhm.
step into some environment where, my insecurities are back, and I'm like, oh, I still have more to do, or I'm still not quite there. So again, it's not perfect, but I do think that in a culture where as a leader you can model it, you can
Mhm.
help other people get there quicker too.
Absolutely. Modeling is really key because when people see you asking, leaning, and getting curious in an empathetic way, particularly open-heartedly, then they feel safe. Psychological safety is really important in this equation, don't you think?
It is, and it's yet another strategy for good performance.
Mm.
I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of people who just agree with me because they're afraid of
Hmm.
disagreeing with me. That's not going to help us get to the best answer.
Precisely.
But if I
Precisely.
don't create an environment where they know that it would not only be okay, but would be celebrated, that we could
Hmm.
spar a little bit to get to the best idea, then we're going to miss out.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Can you give us a specific example of something you would do differently, perhaps something specific that you do differently given the chance?
Hmm. Goodness. I mean, there's so many things from small to big. Let's see. So I'm trying to think. I initially, the first thing that came to mind, so we've expanded, we work mostly from home. And it's funny how, again, your best laid plans are there and then things change. So we made a plan that as we expanded, we were going to expand to very specific population centers so that we could still have an office or we could still bring people in and we could still do all of this. And so that kind of led, along with an eye to time zone and making sure that we'd be fully staffed, kind of led our expansion across the US. And then, of course, during again the COVID years, these things all changed. And
Mhm.
so I had it to do over again, I think we might have, let people work from a lot of other locations, but we were very strategic and very intentional about marching across
Mhm.
to like this big population center. And then the world changed and everybody works from, all kinds of places and lots of people don't live in big cities as much
Mhm.
as maybe they did. Some of people have moved a little further out. Um, so I think from a strategic standpoint, we might have done that differently. Um, I'm thinking about, leadership structures and business strategies, and there's so many things that I probably could have done differently along the way because of, one thought and then how things played out. But I also think that every lesson is kind of a building block. Of course, we can't know what we didn't know at the time, but we can know better for next time.
Yeah, there's actually strategies in figuring out what you don't know because we all have it. We all have
Yeah.
blind spots, what we don't know that we don't
Mhm.
know. So if you don't even know it, how are you going to even? Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of one, Kathy. Okay, so again, so such the hard way. I came up with a, big air quote, brilliant idea about how I was gonna, I know it's always just terrible, right? My brilliant idea. So much fanfare. If I could have thrown a parade over this brilliant idea, I was gonna revolutionize the whole way we did our account management. I read
Okay.
something, I thought it up, I thought it was great. I thought it was foolproof, which meant I was like pedal to the metal, all in, all the time.
Mhm.
And so I didn't do the things that I now know to do, like, maybe a small test, maybe ask for feedback, maybe talk to the people who are going to be impacted by this. Like, there's so many really obvious things, but I was so certain that this was a brilliant idea that even the couple of brave souls who tried to say, like, hey, maybe we should slow down, no time for them. So I rolled out this brilliant idea, and it, of course, was horrible. It was horrible for the account managers who were involved. It was not great. Our clients were a little bit confused because, of course, it happened really fast and I was so excited. And it wasn't driving the results that I thought it would. And I waited. I thought it's going to get better. That whole sunk cost fallacy. Like, I've already put all of this into it. Like, if we just wait longer, and it didn't. Um, and I remember when I decided I finally had to like face the music of this terrible idea because it involved so many humans and so much process and so much expense. And I remember marching into my boss's office because I was like, I'm going to get demoted. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get yelled at. Like, this is terrible. And it's all my fault because I didn't allow anybody else to be part of this. And he hadn't said anything. And so I'm impatient. So I'm like, I've just reviewed the numbers and this is terrible. And this is all of my doing. And if I could have done it differently, I would have done this. And I'm all the words. And I remember he just slowly and calmly looked at me and he said, well, it sounds like you've learned a lot. I'll be excited to see how you turn it around.
Fabulous.
Right. And I remember backing out of the office and thinking, I don't have even the faintest idea of the first step and how to solve this. But it was my mess to clean up, and I learned so much from it, including the things I highlighted. Like, I love small tests now. I love getting feedback from the people who are going to be most impacted. And as a leader, because I had this great mentor, this great model, I do the same thing. Mistakes are going to happen when you care and you want to try things. Let's make smaller mistakes and let's call it what it is sooner and then give the person the chance to fix it. And there's a lot of learnings there.
Absolutely. Wow, what a great story. I love that. And usually some of the biggest failures in our businesses lead to something even greater though.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, so much learning and understanding. And okay, one of the great things was that I was sadly working to solve a problem that wasn't actually a problem for the people who were involved.
Mm.
So I think this is something that can happen when you're not in it every day. You can look at it from a different perspective and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to make everybody's life better."
Yeah.
And you
Good
you actually
intentions. Good
good
intentions.
intentions, but no like practical application. And so we did learn a lot. And anyway, everybody who works in that team should be happy that now they're a lot more autonomous into how they can make their lives and work days better. And I'm not deciding.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's always good to think progressively and try than not try at all. It's good to try. It's better to try and fail, I always say, than not trying at all because you will learn that learning experience is
Yeah.
really something that we can all take and who knows, maybe next time you come up with a great idea, it is going to be a home run.
We're big triers. We're big experimenters. We're big triers. We love trying things for our clients. We love experimenting with how we work. And I never want to stop that.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty confident I will never say that we should, you know, turn an entire department or work system upside down
Yeah, 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 yeah.
without lots of testing prior.
Yeah, it's we have an empathy model that we advocate in rolling out new things, and it does
Mm,
take all of the things you mentioned into consideration
hmm
because it is important to consider people who are being impacted. It's important to look at outcomes now versus future set outcomes.
hmm
It's how am I improving everybody's life here? Those are all, yeah,
Yeah. It seems really obvious after you've made the horrific mistake, but at the time I
right.
just wasn't slowing down enough to even consider it. So that's one of my biggest mistakes. That's something I would have gone back and done differently, but the good news is I will never make that particular mistake again.
But you know what? I think that the idea and the intention behind it was lovely, and I love that. I love that ambition about you. I think it's what makes you a great leader and open to it, admitting that you make a mistake. I mean, some people can't do that.
I try to be open because also you don't want to be like what was that? The emperor and their clothes. Everybody
Yeah.
else can see it. You might as well call it out too.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Let's pivot and talk about the future. This is my favorite part because I love having a vision about the future, and particularly one that's optimistic, once that's set in growth and joy and all that good stuff. So tell me about what is important about your business journey to have as a vision for the future. So
Yeah.
what is your vision for the future?
When it comes to Answer Connect, I I believe that there will always be a place for small business. I think that, I want entrepreneurs to succeed. I want to be that bridge that can help folks with a big idea take it to the next level. So the vision for the future is to keep providing a lot of value to small and mid-sized businesses through this consultative service that we offer, whether that's answering their phone calls or their web chats or helping them schedule appointments or capturing more business or doing any of these things. And I think that as tech continues to progress, our service offerings will also become, more robust or different. But I think the core will stay true. We're still going to
Hmm.
be there. And my vision is that we keep helping these businesses because I think it gets even harder for them to be, found online and for them to capture every opportunity that comes their way. I also get really excited. I love leadership. I think leadership's so important. And I love our business. I love our culture. I really love the people who work at AnswerConnect. And so my vision for the future is to continue being an example of how things could be a little better, a little different than a lot of the companies that we've all worked for in the past. Again, I don't think we're perfect. I do think that we are guided by our core values and we continue to try to be better. And
Hmm.
things aren't set in stone. And
Hmm.
we do work to take care of our people, to invest in our people, to grow our people. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm
Hmm.
excited to see how that continues to guide us.
Well, you can't with that strategy, you're not going to go wrong. That's for sure. As long as you continue that, that's amazing. I love that. So where do you see yourself, let's say in 2030?
I hope here with Answer Connect 2030, I have to do the math. I'm like, yes, here still. Um, I've I have been here for almost 20 years. I want to be here for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, making a positive impact. I mean, I learn something new every day. And we actually have learning as one of our first core values. So
Oh,
it's not
wow.
only me learning every day, it's everyone in our organization gets time every single day to learn, paid. Um, I think collectively, a rising tide lifts all ships. We're all going to be learning a lot more. But it would be an absolute privilege, an absolute pleasure to still be leading Answer Connect into all the new chapters, all the new territories, all the new things that we might be able to do. I think business can be a catalyst for the kind of positive change that we want to see in the world. I think that between all of the clients who we get to impact every day and all of the employees and all of the callers and all of that, I think those can be positive ripples for good.
Absolutely. I love that learning is your number one value. That is fantastic. So what does a typical day look like for your employees as a learning? You say that you pay
So
them to.
yeah. So a typical day for employees is going to vary widely based on what they do, what their function is. However, everybody gets at least 30 minutes a day of paid learning time. And so it started out really rudimentary, like we were sharing YouTube videos around, or we would come to work and there'd be a new book on our desk. And
Mhm.
over the years, it evolved to an online university that we built called Adaptive U. And it's crowdsourced within our organization so we can upload books or TED Talks or um, masterclass or articles or whatever it is. We upload them, we can consume them during that paid time that we've got. And then within the university, you also share your takeaways. So we've
Mm,
got this kind of ongoing conversation about the learning and it's transparent. So I can see what other people are learning. And sometimes I'm like,
mm.
oh, I really love like the kinds of things that they're interested in. So I'll learn it and then we can talk about it.
That's
And
fantastic.
we've got they're called learning meetups and they're not spontaneous, but they always seem spontaneous to me. They're on some schedule. 10-minute meetings where anybody from any job function can join a video call link and for 10 minutes they talk about the things that they've been learning and they share the links to the books or the talks or the articles. And so these happen and they're spontaneous for me because I don't have them always on my calendar, but I can jump in and I could talk with somebody who's a call center agent or somebody who's in marketing or somebody who's in design or human resources or client services. But for those 10 minutes, we're just sharing like, yeah, I listened to this really great podcast about, X, Y, and Z. And we just ping pong back and forth and it allows us another way to get to know each other, also another way to share information. Sometimes I notice I get really rooted in kind of one genre of learning and it's really great to join and be like, oh, I would have never thought of this, and so I can kind of
Yeah,
pivot and bring something else in. So every day that's happening, and again that compounds over time to be
sure.
a lot of learning.
That's fabulous. And you mentioned earlier that your workforce is mostly they work from home, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So what's the percentage of the people working in their homes versus in your office, or do you have an office?
We have a couple of offices that we can rotate into. So lately, myself and a couple of others have been rotating in like once a week to our Portland office. And there's some folks who are rotating in at some cadence to locations on the East Coast or in Canada or whatever the function. Those are more like intentional meeting days, intentional days to collaborate. What we don't want is just now you have to commute and then go sit in an office and do the exact same thing that you would do if you were at home.
Hmm.
I don't think that's a really good use of hybrid time. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that sitting shoulder to shoulder with some coworkers, collaborating, having some spontaneous connections is super
Mm-hmm.
valuable. And so we do work to engineer that for folks when it works for them.
Mm-hmm.
But we mostly work from home outside of those intentional times. And we mostly really, really like that too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow, that's really, really powerful. I love your learning protocol and the collaborative nature of it, and that you guys move around as needed with these intentional meetings that are directed to solving an issue versus just doing the same old every day, going into the office, doing the same thing that you would do if you were
Yep.
working at home. So what would you know, looking ahead and growing and just doing more, adding more
Mhm.
value. What specific thing do you envision your company solving for your space for entrepreneurs? Because
Mhm.
there's the potential is immense because the landscape of the people you serve are just, it's all over the place, and
Yeah.
they're yeah. So what is the one thing that you could see really making a big impact?
So it's a great question, and I can't predict the future, but I can tell you kind of the general direction that I think will add value. We can make sure that every client's phone calls, web chats, appointments are all handled and answered. I think in the age of AI knocking at the door and, for some presenting a value proposition in that, it's automated, it's not a real person, maybe that's beneficial in some ways in some people's minds. I think for us, we're going to lean into being more consultative, more boutique, more kind of, like I said, the one stop shop for a business. We have so much knowledge about how small businesses can grow, how they can work, how they can leverage their positioning, that I see us building that more into our service offerings. So, for
Um,
instance, with our tech, we can help a client have a very simple website. A lot of our small business clients don't have any web presence, and
mhm,
we offer that. It's part of our service.
mm,
We can help them show up on like a local Google search, for instance. We know how to do that. We can give them a booking page for free through our scheduling software so that if they've got a service, they could put that right out there and their clients can start booking with them without needing to call in or without needing to go
mm.
back and forth. Um, so I think we'll continue leaning in that direction just to help them continue to thrive as small business while still being team human, while still offering all of that, but leveraging more of what we know because it's hard. A lot of people get into a business or they launch a business or they're an entrepreneur, but they don't know how to make sure that Google knows they exist. They don't know where to begin when it comes to helping people find, making sure that people can find them. So I think we can help with
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Harnessing that well of knowledge that you get from working with our clients,
Yeah.
that alone is a huge well of that could be harnessed the correct way. If you
Yeah.
strategy to correctly harness that information, it would be huge in that endeavor. So what would that mean to you? What would that mean to you? Like, what I'm trying to get to your why. Why
Yeah.
does this drive you?
Why does this matter to me?
Hmm.
I'm so passionate about people and their dreams and their aspirations. And
Mm,
if I can play a role in helping somebody achieve their goal, achieve their dream, achieve their aspiration, that matters. I think there's a lasting impact. So I still remember my daughter's 10 and I had kind of forgotten, but it recently occurred to me. She was talking to me about her name. And when I was pretty new, because I moved into the sales department pretty early, I worked with this client. She called in, she had this very um, fancy corporate job, and she was totally burnt out. And she said, I want to do my own thing. I want to launch a concierge business. I think I'll be the only concierge to start with, but like, how do I do this? I'm keeping my job. I need to launch a business. I said, we can provide you with a phone number. We can make sure that it's answered. We could help schedule appointments. I think at that point, even we had this option for like a web page, something very simple. So I'm talking with her about these things. And she was just this vibrant human. She was full of life. She had so many ideas. She really wanted to help people. And the name of her concierge business, I don't know if I should say, I think it's fine, but it was like, Hey Viv. And her name was Vivian. And she just made this impact. And I worked with her over the span of many months, and she was great.
Mm-hmm.
And she eventually did get to leave her corporate job and launch her dream. So, anyway, all these years later, when I found out I was having a little girl, I decided to name her Vivian. And I didn't know why, right? I just knew I was
Yeah.
like, it's a strong, vibrant, vivacious, awesome name. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't know any other Vivian. There's no, where did this, it came from this client.
Yeah.
It came from this really remarkable human who I got to work with. And I think that's my why. It's
Mhm.
there's people out there who need a helping hand. They're driven, they're entrepreneurial, but we've got some knowledge, we've got some capability, and I want to keep help helping to make that happen.
Yeah, and they leave a lasting impression on you as well. So that's, I love
Yeah.
how, I love your human connectedness.
Yeah, I
Love
think that's
that.
the why. I think that's what it's all about, personally.
Yeah. Is there anything that's holding you back from your vision to come true?
Mm, would it would it be weird to say no?
No, no.
I I really think I think it's all very possible. I
Okay.
I think
Just a
I
matter of doing it, strategy.
I think it's happening. I think we're poised to do that, to stay the
Mhm.
course. You know, I always, well, I don't know if I always say it or if I should say it, but I think we're on that track. As long as we don't do something remarkably stupid, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, there will always be ups and downs and outside forces, but we can stay true to ourselves and we can stay the course.
Hmm.
And therefore I think we can achieve that.
That's fabulous. I think I'm an optimist. I'm a
Me
forever
too.
optimist. I think that anything is, of course, anything is possible. You just, when you have a great idea and evolving, the big great ideas are fabulous, and I love
Hmm.
yours. And there's 1,000 different things that need to happen in order to make it
Hmm.
come to life. It's just a matter of strategizing with the right partners and such to
Yeah.
make it happen.
I think it's John Doerr who said ideas are easy, execution is everything.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, the big ideas are great, right? We could all sit around and dream them up, but it's really about the doing.
Yes.
And so we're going to keep doing in small iterative steps, marching forward. And like I said, trying not to do anything catastrophically dumb. And and then I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Just implementing the right strategies. But I think it's a great vision. I think it's incredibly powerful. It'll have a big impact in that mid-market, mid small to mid-market, because those companies don't have huge budgets.
Right.
So if you can take on sounds like some of the marketing thing,
Hmm.
it's the search engine optimization and the websites and the calendars and
Yeah.
appointment links and such. Those are all, yeah, for companies
Yeah.
that don't have a
That
big budget.
the world's changing. You know, Google has been supreme for a very long time. Now you have search results in Chat GPT, you've got Bing, you've got all of these things. So it's going to be interesting to navigate. But I think that for our small business clients, when they partner with us, they can have somebody who can help them navigate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's huge value.
Hmm.
And so tell me about some of the habits that drive you personally.
Mm. So I am a big believer in having structure or habits. If I'm, without a plan, I might just, who knows, I might just lay on the couch and eat Doritos all day. So I do have to have some really good habits. So I'm pretty, I don't want to say regimented because I don't like thinking of myself that way, but everything's on my calendar
Hmm.
and I operate in a very similar way
Hmm.
almost every day. So habits, I mean, from like the basics, I'm a basic human, so I need to fuel my body with nutrition. I'm a happier, better person when I get some exercise, when I get some fresh air, when I socialize with people I care about, when I read my book or listen to my book while I'm walking, spend some time. All of those things are habits that are baked in and that are literally on my calendar. I'll get a pop-up that says go for a walk and I have to, because if I don't, I'm going to be grumpy later. I have a pop-up, it'll say, eat some food. And I'm like, oh, all right. Um, all of those things are really core to me being, a full human and not just being hunched over my laptop all the time. Um, Learning has been a really important habit in my life.
Mm,
And I think I'm a totally different person because of my learning habit, because my commitment to learning something new every day, really sticking to that. I set a
mm,
goal for myself every year on how many books I'm going to read, and also making sure they're not all the same genre. Um, and I usually achieve the goal. And also making sure that I stay connected to our broader employee and client base. It could
mhm,
be easy if I didn't have it on my calendar and if I didn't make it a habit to kind of only talk to the same small circle of folks who I work
mm,
most closely with. But because I've built a habit, I do
mm,
talk to customers and I do talk to a lot of different folks in the company, from brand new employees through folks who've been here for a while, but I don't overlap with them. So all of those are important habits for me being
mm.
successful.
That's great. That's great. I love that. I love that you read a lot. I'm a reader too. What's your favorite book? Or
I, well, it's so funny because anytime I get that question, I go blank because I read so many. I'll tell you, my all-time favorite book that I read when I was a kid was probably A Wrinkle in Time. I love it.
okay.
I was such a huge fan. I'm currently listening to Ultra Processed People, which is about processed food, and it's like ruining my life
Yeah.
because ultra processed foods are
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
even the foods that I don't think are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's my favorite, but like it's good. Actually, so kind of in the health genre, there was one that I read a couple of years ago by Dr. Greger, I think, and it was How Not to Die.
Mm.
And it's a lot about nutrition, but I will tell you, the first chapter was gripping enough that I was driving home, and as I was listening to it, I took a turn and went to the grocery store and immediately bought some broccoli.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of nutrition and
Yes.
eating real food and staying away from processed food. So I get it. I'm with you.
Yeah. Oh, and I have to mention another book that like changed. It's like the books that make you do something, right?
Yeah.
Like I love a lot of books, but the books that kind
Yeah.
of like get under your skin and you're like, "Ugh." 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman. I read this a couple of years ago. You were asking about habits. I told you everything's on my calendar. And I used to really try to work on productivity hacks. And I was like getting up at 4 in the morning and going to sleep. And I'm just like, maybe if I set another timer, I could do more. And this book, 4,000 Weeks, it speaks to our average lifespan here in North America. 4,000
Mhm.
weeks is about the average lifespan. And like for me, I'm well into that. And so
Mhm.
the whole premise of the book is, yeah, you can have all these productivity hacks, but you don't get more time. So you have to
Yeah.
prioritize your time. And after I read that, I
Mhm.
did the very sad and very hard thing of actually prioritizing what was important, because like
Mhm.
everything is important. I want to do everything, but I had to start saying no to things.
Mm.
And I'm more used to it now than I was 2 years ago. But what
Mhm.
that means for me is I can be more present in the things that I have voted are a priority.
Yeah, that's a huge point for me as well. I mean, I think that that is such an important way to look at the world because if you are going by your to-do list and you're putting a bunch of things that you got to get done, and not
Hmm.
only are you going to get disappointed, but it's just not the most productive way
Hmm.
to go about our business, our personal lives. There's better ways of really compounding, collapsing time and getting things done quickly.
Hmm.
You know how to be in a state where you're most optimized. And if you block your calendar, oh yeah, there's all kinds of strategies to make sure that you're getting the most and getting doing what most people get done in 40 hours, getting it done in 20.
Absolutely. And so I fully agree with that. And letting go of some things that just
Yeah.
aren't really worth your time. And I think the combination can make your life a lot better.
That's a great note to end our interview here with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me, Natalie. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I have a feeling we'll have you back on our show. So stay with me, stay with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I would love to come back. I'd love to talk about, 10 more books that made me, change something in my life.
I'm sure maybe we could have an episode just on that.
Maybe, maybe if your listeners want it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.